Social media names policies are really fucking annoying, aren't they? Well, I've just run into a problem with Facebook, but let's turn it into a big sociological problem that affects more than just me, because that makes it seem more important. And what the heck? Works for feminism.
The white boy is back, and you know that he never smoked crack. The white boy is back, 'cause you know he's the white boy.
Now, while I often criticise, shall we say, trans trenders, I do have a great deal of sympathy for actual trans people. That may seem judgmental to you, but there we go. I think there's some kind of standard, and I'm muddling my way through trying to find somewhere in the middle. But something that I do understand that severely affects trans people is the names issue. You know, when you change your gender over and you decide to go by your new name, your new identity, you pick out your shiny new name and you take it for a drive, you often run into trouble because you often need to change all your identity papers and everything. Now, strictly speaking, under British law, you don't need to do that. The only time you need to use your full legal name is on your passports, bank records, basically anything super important or to do with the government. Otherwise, all you need to do to legally change your name is to start using the new name. That's it. I've been through this before, stupidly enough, when I was part of the LARP organisation, the Camarilla. I wanted all my correspondence, etc., to go by Grim, a name I've been using personally since about 1990, when I was dubbed that in college. For various reasons, I was a rather depressed, gothy individual at the time, and the slang at the time was, you know, ooh, that's grim, meaning that's disgusting or nasty or whatever, and that combined with the meaning of, oh, you're grim-faced and whatever, became my nickname. I thought it was cool, adopted it, and pretty much everyone except my mother has been calling me Grim ever since. It's on my awards, it's on my book covers, it's on my author pages, it's on my Wikipedia entry, none of which was good enough for Facebook, because some chromosomally damaged individual decided to report my name because I had Grim, even in scare quotes, as a middle name, and that was too much for some little Napoleons. They reported me. So I've been wrestling since I got up this morning with Facebook, trying to get them to acknowledge my professional name, my author name, the thing that differentiates me from the tabloid reporter James Desborough, who is a cunt and was implicated in phone hacking and various other scandals. I do not want to be associated with him. I have my own scandals and bad reputation to deal with, thank you very much. I don't want to be associated with someone who wrote a book about One Direction. Thank you. Now, you do have the option to let them reset your name to your real name while you continue to argue over it, and you can even put in a nickname which can appear displayed at the top of the screen. I didn't want to go for that because the name everyone knows me by, the name I use in my day-to-day life, the name people will search for when they're looking for my books and so on, is James Grim Desborough, or just Grim. So I didn't want to take that route. So while I continue to fight, given in for a bit and put my nickname up as that. But this does actually, for all I was sort of making fun at the beginning, this does raise bigger issues. The Facebookification of the internet, the idea that your online ID must be intimately connected with your real information. You know, I've chosen to associate, you know, my profiles and so on with the real me. Other people haven't, and anonymity is important. People always play up the troll side of it, but trolling you can just block, ignore, it can't actually hurt you any more than you allow it to hurt you. And meanwhile, anonymity has very powerful and important uses. For whistleblowing, for seeking aid and comfort. If you are, say, a gay teenager in a religious household, in a religious community where coming out could see you beaten, homeless, even dead, then the internet can provide a great outlet for you to go out underneath a guise of a different identity, join a community, communicate with people. The same with trans individuals, the same with domestic violence victims who may not feel safe talking to anyone face to face or may need a shield of anonymity. Whistleblowers, like I said, there's all kinds of valid, important uses for anonymity. And the philosophy of image boards that emphasize anonymity, like 4chan and 8chan, is correct. Once you strip away everything else, if you're discussing, if you're having an argument, if you're having a debate, anonymity shows up so much bullshit and reduces it down to the arguments. At least in the ideal circumstance, it reduces it down to the arguments and the validity of the arguments, not your identity, not who you are. And this is a brilliant and important counterpoint to the ascendancy of identity politics everywhere else. Yet, if you get into an argument now on, say, Twitter, or in a comment section or wherever else, people seem to expect and want you to have your identity on the show, no matter how controversial your opinions. There can be blowback if you hold a controversial opinion. You still should have a right to have and hold and express that opinion. The blowback may be essentially vigilantism. So, it makes sense that some people seek to hide their identities to talk. I understand that. I accept that. I think it's overall a good thing. I think on the cost-benefit analysis, that's a good thing. I think trans people should be able to go by their names without any real fuss. I think authors and other people who use nom de plumes should be able to use those without any fuss on social media. And yet, here we are. Everyone is desperately trying to attach us to our official ID, to make our presence online the same in every instance as our presence offline. And I think we stand to lose an awful lot from that. It just personally bugs me today because I've run into it, which gives me an excuse to rant about it again. What do you think? Do you think the cost outweighs the benefit? Do you think the benefit outweighs the cost? What names do you go by? What do you think? Zang. Grim gave a big yawn and settled down to sleep. And of course, when Grim goes to sleep, all of his friends go to sleep too. The people on the internet were just text on a screen, the collectibles were just cheap plastic tat, and the books were just elaborate sandwiches made of wood and paper. Even Grim himself, once he was asleep, was just an old saggy goth twat, baggy and a bit loose at the seams, and nobody loved him.